Hi, it's me, Stephanie. Hi, it's me, Stephanie Michelle, Soror Samhain. So anyways. Okay, so tonight, as I mentioned on Facebook, I wanted to do a tarot card reading regarding the current conflict in the Middle East between the Israelis and the so-called Palestinians. Unfortunately, I decided to discard that layout, as I'll mention in a following statement. Um, but I also wanted to demonstrate on video how I do tarot card readings, because I use a different method than most people do, which I'll explain in another video, perhaps another time. Um, Anyways, it's called the Rosicrucian method. And I have noticed that some people recently, some tarot card readers, professionals like Joe Monteleone on YouTube, has been adopting some of this hermetic tradition, but typically it's been more of what's called the psychic tarot card reading tradition that is used. And my method is still a little bit different than that of like Joe Monteleone. So I wanted to share it so that people can see what it's like. So when it comes to the tarot cards, I like to state from the very beginning that I am not superstitious about them. I do not believe that the tarot is supernatural. I believe that it's just pictures printed on cardboard stock. I like to quote from the Bible in regards to the tarot cards. Proverbs 16:33, which states that the lot is cast from the bosom, the seat of the heart, the emotions, the desires, but its every judgment is from Tetragrammaton. Therefore, kind of like rolling dice, I believe that the tarot cards fall in a random pattern which has meaning given to it by Tetragrammaton. And by Tetragrammaton, even though that is the holy name of God in Judaism, I don't necessarily believe that it's like some anthropomorphic spiritual God in the heavens, but rather a symbol of nature itself, of providence, because Tetragrammaton is the four-letter name of God, which is Yod, He, Vav, He, and those, according to the Hermetic tradition, represent fire, water, air, and earth in their archetypal aspects. And so I see that as nature working through providence with how the cards are falling randomly. So to me, the real magic of the tarot cards is in their associations with astrology. The symbols in the cards have astrological symbols. So unlike with astrology, however, where if you do a horoscope, you can actually look at the transits and go outside and see where the planets and the stars are actually aligned. And in my opinion, those are representative of actual forces of nature that are working in your life. With the tarot cards, these planetary or astrological symbols may not necessarily be applying in nature right now, but they're falling randomly in order to influence your decision making in the moment. So, like I did with the original reading, I choose one of the court cards to be the querent. Querent is a Latin term, which basically means someone who's asking a question, the question being the query. So in this case, I chose the Knight of Swords to represent the modern state of Israel. And that's because the horoscope for the modern state of Israel, the Zionist state, which was founded on the 14th of May of 1948, has the state of Israel as a solar Taurus, an earth sign, but also their rising sign being Libra, which is an air sign. I chose this card because this represents an air sign that's acting in an airy manner. Airy manner meaning that it's dealing with intellectual matters, conflicts, interactions between people in regards to ideas, ideologies, philosophies. It involves trickery, sometimes deceit, stuff like that. There are, of course, 16 different combinations of court cards in the tarot deck that can be used for the querent, and I'll get into that in another video, maybe at another time. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do in any tarot card reading that I do for a client, and what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to shuffle the deck. I'm going to shuffle it several times just to make sure that the cards are in a random order, as random as I can possibly get them to be. The next thing I'll do is I'll hand the deck of cards to my client in order for them to handle them, touch them, shuffle them, and I'll have them think of their query, their question, which I don't have them ever vocalize to me unless they want to. So in this case, I'm going to share with you guys what my query is in regards to the Middle East conflict between the Israelis and the so-called Palestinians, and that is in regard to whether or not this current conflict may be leading to a larger war, which, if you take the Bible univocally, you might say that it refers to like a war of Gog and Magog, which leads to end time events of the latter days. And I'm doing that query because I think it's one that a lot of people that are concerned about current events in regards to biblical stuff are interested in. Okay, so just to reemphasize, some tarot card readers are superstitious about letting other people handle and touch their deck of cards. I think that's a silly superstition in my personal opinion. I don't burn sage over my tarot cards after people handle them. I don't do prayers to protect them from the evil spirits. Sometimes I'll spray them with pretty smelling perfume, and I do like to do prayers for like ritualistic, mystical purposes to set the mood, stuff like that. But again, I try not to be superstitious about the tarot. All right, so now that I've shuffled the cards, I've handed them to the querent in an actual session. This time there is no client for me to do that with, so I just shuffle them myself. Okay, so then the next thing I do is I lay the cards out into 4 separate piles based on the 4 Hebrew letters of the Tetragrammaton, the holy name of God in the Bible. Yod, He, Vav, He. So I'll lay out Yod, He, Vav, He. And I'll continue to do that with each of the cards of the deck until I come to the end where I'm going to have 2 cards left over. And those 2 cards are going to represent the divine sperm, because the Yod represents the unerect divine penis of Macroprosopis. The first He represents the divine Shekinah in its highest element. The Vav represents the divine erect penis of Microprosopis, and the final He deck represents the divine Shekinah, the divine female in its lower aspect. The Yod also represents the world of Atziluth, which is the world of the 10 holy Sephiroth. The first Haydak represents the divine world of Beriah, the world of the archangels. The Vavdak represents the divine world of Yetzirah, which is the world of the angels. And the final Haydak represents also the world of Ashiah, which is the world of the mystical aspects of the physical realm, meaning the 10 Sephiroth more is like internal vortices of psychosexual energy, like the chakras of Hinduism. So the Yod also represents fire element, which is like will, passion, career, stuff like that. The first Haydak represents also the element of water, emotions, relationships, creative ideas of a artistic nature. The Vav deck also represents the element of air, so intellectual relationships, ideas, conflicts, situations like that. And the final Hay deck also represents the element of earth, which would be like matters of practicality, of finance, of health, issues like that. So again, I'll end it with two. One's representing the sperm into the female because they're being impregnated by the divine phalluses, the divine penises of Macroprosopis and or Microprosopis. Now, after I lay out these 4 piles of the Yod, Hay, Vav, Hay, then I'm going to find which pile the querent card that I chose is found in. I'm going to discard the other decks, and then I'm going to keep the one deck that has the querent in it, whether it be the Yod deck, the first Hay deck, the Vav deck, or the final Hay deck. That's the one I'm going to use. And if it's the Yod or the Vav deck, after I lay out the 5 triads, I'm going to end up with 4 extra cards, which are going to represent the Tetragrammaton Yod, Hay, Vav, Hay. If the querent is found in one of the Hay decks, the first Hay or the final Hay, then it's going to have 5 cards left over after I do the 5 triads, and that's going to represent the Pentagrammaton Yod, Hay, Shin, Vav, Hay. And I have a different meaning for that, which I'll get to later. In this case, the querent card which I chose, which was the Knight of Swords to represent the state of Israel, the modern Zionist state in the Middle East, was found in the first deck of the Yod, or fire, will, passion, the world of Atzilut, the world of the 10 divine holy Sephiroth. So, in my opinion, this entire layout is going to mainly deal with ideology in the sense of like the passion of it, the desire to enforce an idea or a influence upon others, rather than if it was in the Vav deck, which also could be ideology, but more of like intellectual sharing, conflict, strife. In this case, it's more of like imposing it upon others. Now I'm going to lay down the first triad of cards, which I call the heart of the matter. So I'm going to hold the cards in my right hand and draw from my left hand because I feel that it's the more intuitive hand since I'm right-handed. Okay, so I'm going to draw one card and set it in the middle, a second card and set it to its left, and a third card and set it to its right. So basically we ended up with this one, the Chariot card in the middle, and then to its left is the Three of Swords, which is the Lord or Lady of Sorrow, according to the Hermetic tradition. And then to its right is the Tower card. Right, so that's what it looks like. So when I do a tarot card reading with a client, when I lay down the first triad of cards, the heart of the matter, I'll ask the client whether or not the meaning of these cards represents what their query was, what their question was. And if it doesn't match, I'll discard that layout and reshuffle the cards and try again. So in regards to the layout that I posted earlier on Facebook, after looking at it myself, I decided that the heart of the matter didn't really match what my query was in regards to the current state of conflict in the Middle East between the Israelis and the so-called Palestinians. So therefore I'm discarding it. I'm going to reshuffle and try it again. So these were the three cards that I originally had as the heart of the matter, which I disagree with. So we had the Eight of Discs, or Eight of Pentacles, which really kind of refers to like material matters of money, like industry. This is the Lord or Lady of Prudence, according to the Rosicrucian method. And then it was surrounded by the Ten of Cups, which is the Lord or Lady of Satiety, which kind of represents like a delusional sense of happiness. And then the Queen of Cups, which represents one of the watery signs like Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, acting in a practical, earthly manner. So in my opinion, these three cards just don't really match the state of like warfare, military conflict, casualties of terrorism, casualties of war, discrimination, allegations of prejudice and apartheid, or any of this type of stuff. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, when I do a formal tarot card reading, I typically use different tarot card decks. In this case, I use the Thoth Tarot deck and the Rider deck. So the Thoth Tarot deck was created by Mr. Aleister Crowley, and it was painted by Lady Frida Harris. The Rider Tarot deck was created by Sir Arthur Edward Wade and painted by Lady Pamela Colman Smith. Both Mr. Aleister Crowley and Sir Arthur Edward Wade were members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a Rosicrucian society in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So both of their tarot card decks share certain Rosicrucian symbolism. However, the Rider Tarot deck tends to be a little bit more traditional, whereas the Thoth Tarot deck kind of demonstrates Mr. Crowley's own religion of Thelema. I also tend to keep a deck of bicycle playing cards with me when I do a formal tarot card reading. That way people can see some of the traditional playing card symbolism. For instance, with the Thoth Tarot and the Rider Tarot, for the Three of Swords, they both share the same suit symbols of swords, whereas in the traditional bicycle playing deck, it would be the Three of Spades. So all three of these cards represent the element of air according to the Hermetic Rosicrucian tradition. Now, with this first triad, the other two cards are trump cards. So you have the Chariot and the Tower. In the Rider deck, the Chariot and the Tower. And in the bicycle deck, the only real trump card is, if I can find him, the Joker. The Joker would represent the Fool in the traditional tarot card. Okay, so in my opinion, this heart of the matter better matches my own query about the current conflict in the Middle East between the Israelis and the Palestinians, specifically my query about whether or not these current events may escalate into a larger war, which could be considered the biblical war of Gog and Magog, leading to like an end times scenario. So again, the Chariot card represents Cancer, the astrological sign of Cancer, which is a very protective sign, emotional. It's a water sign, but it's a cardinal water sign. So it's active emotion, very motherly card. So I can see this, and let's look at the Rider deck too. So I could see this symbolism as basically self-defense. So Israel was attacked by Hamas terrorists, and so now they're preparing to launch an offensive in the Gaza Strip as like a self-protective measure, which I think this Cancer symbolism is showing. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, when I interpret the cards, especially the minor arcana cards, these cards, the pip cards instead of the trump cards, the so-called major arcana, is I read them on several levels. The symbolism on the cards, the astrological symbols, and then the Kabbalistic symbols. So in regards to the Three of Swords, as you can see, we'll start with the top row. It's the Lord or Lady of Sorrow, according to the Rosicrucian method. And it's just a very depressing, heartbreaking situation where this wilted flower that is turned yellow from just being dead is being stabbed by these various types of daggers. In the Rider deck, the symbolism is a little more traditional, a little more simple, but just as striking, where it's three swords that are stabbing through a heart. This is a very Christian religious symbol. So the astrological symbolism is Saturn in Libra. So Saturn is the astrological planet of like restriction, discipline. It's considered the greater malefic in astrology, whereas the astrological zodiac sign of Libra tends to be one that wants to bring harmony to situations, to social situations. It tends to be rather hesitant to stir the pot. So in this case, I think the Saturn influence is acting rather negatively upon that, seeking, justice and balance. It's causing agitation and discomfort and sorrow. And so I think this is really referring to the fact that obviously the Middle East situation, people want to live in peace, but here we have acts of terrorism and then requiring a response, which can also lead to more discrimination. So you're having struggle and strife on both sides, and I think that is what's going on here. Okay, then the last and third card of the triad is the Tower, sometimes called the Tower of God or the Tower of the Devil in the more traditional, like Marseille and older, even the oldest decks, like the Sforza deck and the Mantegna deck. I think I pronounced those correctly. Okay, so last night, like a blonde bimbo, I ended up forgetting to press record for some of my portions, and I just babbled for minutes without recording it. And then when I did record myself, it was just me fidgeting around looking like an idiot. So I have to re-record